Okay. Hello, folks, and welcome to the latest in our series of GrowCFO Tech webinars. Now, our theme this quarter is very much around AI native and AI agents. And we're doing a lot of things. We're writing an innovation report at the moment, and we're moving towards a tech showcase on that subject towards the end of the quarter. But we're covering a lot of themes as we go along. And one area that AI can make a huge, huge impact is within FP&A, within forecasting and planning and budgeting. But we're generally seeing that people aren't making as much progress as perhaps we were expecting. So today, I've got with me a fantastic panel of people, some real deep experts today, not people necessarily from the finance world, because hey, it's the finance folk that have got the problems here. I'm hoping across the panel that we're bringing in today, we've got the experts that can help us along and get to grips with this area. So I've got Eric and Manuel from Acterys and Boris from NoseDat. They're seeing a lot of stuff that's going on out there with tech in general and where people are really struggling. So we'll get going in a minute with that. But first, and you don't, a lot of you come along to regularly to GrowCFO webinars, but no, we do a lot more than just webinars. I host the GrowCFO Show podcast once a week, and actually Eric and Manuel, who we've got today, were recently guests of mine. We were talking about the trends for 2026. But there's much more content on our website. But the core of what GrowCFO do is mentoring, training programs for CFOs, for teams, for future CFOs. Now, if you want to find out more, go along to our website, particularly if you want to find out some more about AI. We've got some great AI training that supplements what we're talking about today. So we're recording. So don't worry about taking notes necessarily. Everybody will be mailed a link to the recording. And as we go along, please start populating the Q&A within the webinar. If it's relevant, we'll take the questions as they come, but we'll have 10 minutes at the end to deal with the questions that are coming up. So, folks, Eric, you're on my screen. Can you briefly give us the 10-second introduction, please? Tell us about you.
Certainly. Eric Reyhle, Senior Vice President of Global Alliances and Customer Success here at Acterys. Been with the organization for a little over 2.5 years, and I've spent my entire career in the fintech SaaS arena and a variety of business development, marketing roles, et cetera. And once again, Kevin, very happy to be here and be a part of your panel.
Yeah. Marcos, Manuel, Manuel.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back, Kevin. My name is Manuel Marcos. I'm an FP&A transformation expert at Acterys with an experience of more than 30 years. And, it's a pleasure to be here to discuss today's topic with you, the rest of the team and the audience.
And I think you've got an interesting role today. It's kind of sitting between the tech and the CFO, the finance team, and you're seeing all the problems firsthand. Boris, you're seeing the problems firsthand as well.
Yeah, of course. Thank you very much, Kevin, to be invited. My name is Boris Fischmann. I'm CEO of NoseDat. I'm around the BI and data environment since 20 years now, with a very strong focus on FP&A. So I'm very happy to be here and looking forward.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I think, Rick, can I ask a question to start with? And we're going to run some polls in a minute. Now, why is the conversation we're having today about AI and FP&A so urgent right now?
Well, I mean, that's a great question, Kevin. I mean, finance teams are operating in an increasingly volatile environment today. I mean, there's economic uncertainty, there's cost pressures, all the things that they're typically dealing with anyway. But also that means constant reforecasting is now the norm. So many FP&A teams are still waiting days, weeks for insight, while analytics and AI capabilities have moved fast. Planning, budgeting, and forecasting often haven't kept that pace. One of the things I love saying to a lot of our clients and prospects alike is it's not AI that's coming for your job, it's bad data. So that's one of the reasons why this is an urgent discussion is it's highlighting the fact that, hey, we want to start looking at AI, but oh, wait a minute. We might have an integration legacy data problem to address first And that only adds to the urgency as an organization does finally get to the point where, yes, let's tackle and implement some AI across the organization. That's going to highlight a foundational issue.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And we thought it'd be interesting to run a couple of polls at this point and just get a feel for you folk in the audience. What is it that's holding you back? No, we're assuming we're making quite an assumption that underutilizing AI is going to be a problem. It may not be. If so, answer the final option here. We're fully utilizing AI, but we're reckoning that probably the reason you're here is because you're not fully utilizing AI. So, why is that? Okay, brilliant. Good number of answers coming in here. I'll just leave that poll running for a couple of minutes more. And okay, that's given still some answers coming in. Okay, so ending the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so there's the results, folks. So number one certainly looks as though it's lack of internal expertise. Nearly half the people are saying that. And lack of bandwidth is another. What's surprising me straight off is unstructured data and risk security concerns are somewhat less than those two. Manuel, how does that come up with your experience of the issues that are going on here?
Yeah, it surprised me because I would say for me probably unstructured and siloed data probably should be or is most of the times the main topic in top of the tables of the finance teams because everyone wants the Ferrari, right? The AI, but we are realizing our roads, the data are still under construction. So, if data is trapped in legacy silos, you simply cannot run advanced models on top. On the second, hand, probably risk and security concerns should be probably the second one, okay? Because it's honestly not surprising to see risk and security in the top of the table of the finance teams. In finance, even trust is probably our most valuable asset, and we simply cannot afford to compromise client data, right? However, we have to be careful that caution doesn't turn into paralysis. So the goal shouldn't be to avoid AI, but to build, the right guardrails first. When we treat security as a foundation rather than a blocker, probably we can innovate with confidence. And of course, lack of internal expertise. This is a very, very common feeling. So, I agree with the audience, but, be careful here because we often think that we need that data scientists, but probably what finance really needs are more translators, right? We need people who understand the P&L and can translate that business logic into requirements for IT. And the second one, which is lack of internal bandwidth, I heard this every day because it's the classic chicken and egg problem. We need AI to save time, but we don't have time to implement the AI. That is why starting probably small with a specific pilot is usually, the best way to break that cycle. That's my opinion.
I wonder, Manuel, if it's the lack of internal bandwidth and the lack of internal expertise is actually stopping people getting as far as worrying about the unstructured data. It could be that no, the data's a bigger problem, but it's not the number one thing that's sitting there at the moment.
Yeah, and it's probably in relation. I mean, probably one of probably it's directly related these two topics with the data silo. So I fully agree, and I understand with the audience and these answers. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I see the topic number one, I think that's the most important, or because I think the finance department always thinks they have to have the expertise in AI. And this is where we have where we have the gap. We have to bring together the IT part and the functional department or to make the best AI solutions. It's not a classical IT project and not a classical functional department project. It's a combination of.
Yeah. So is that something you're seeing across, you're implementing with a range of clients, Boris?
Yes,
That
definitely.
lack of expertise, something that you're seeing as a common thing across clients you're working with?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the back end has to be prepared or it has to be served from the IT departments, and the use cases has to be defined by the functional departments.
Yeah, okay. Now we've got a second poll here. Slightly different angle. What worries you most about AI in FP&A? Hmm. Yeah, give folk a few minutes to answer that. No, it may be all of the above, and we're probably being a bit mean asking you to choose just one of these. It may well be all of the above, but let's see what happens. So I've got a reasonable number of replies there, so I'm going to end the poll and let's just have a look. Yeah. So accuracy of the outputs. Can we trust what the system's telling us? And then data quality is coming up pretty high on this as number two. So yeah, yeah. And Boris, how accurate do you think the answers are coming out of
I
the
think
AI?
that they are very, very good and it shows the reality in my eyes. Or if we say data quality and foundation, it's always a topic that master data management. The data quality is a huge task or a huge task. And if you have no concrete use case where you should start, or then it's always a mess. But if you have the right way to work with it or be focused on use cases which make your return on invest, then I think it's much easier. But this is what the reality shows in the business outside.
Mm,
And the accuracy of the output is yes, you have to train, you have to test the data, you have to do it more often, or it could be weeks, it could be a month or two. But at the end, when everything is stabilized, then it will work. But it's a longer time. It's not something what you do one time and then it's fine, or it's a progress, I would say.
mm.
And this is what we normally see.
Yeah. So, Manuel, we're certainly seeing here it's not just adoption of technology that's causing the problem.
Yeah. So short answer, no. I mean, in my conversations with finance teams, technology is almost never the problem. I mean, the models work, the math works. The real blocker is more simple, is trust. Think about the life of a controller or an FP&A director, right? Our reputation relies basically on accuracy. So when the AI gives us a forecast, the first question is not, is this cool? No, the first question is, can I defend this number? Can I explain it to my CFO? Can I justify it to the board? Or even, will it survive an audit? If the answer is, I don't know, then adoption just stops right there.
Mm,
And this leads probably to a second issue, which is, finance and IT, because they often speak different languages, correct? IT focuses on speed, finance focuses on risk. So many AI projects fail not because the code is wrong, but because we haven't connected the vision of IT with the governance of the finance teams. So for me, it's not a tech problem at all. It's a responsibility problem.
mm. Yeah. So what do you think the biggest misconception that finance leaders have about AI in planning and forecasting?
Well,
Well,
Kevin, let me answer that real quickly because I want to,
Okay.
Manuel, you said something very interesting there. But when I'm looking at the poll results and I see the top two responses being accuracy of outputs and data quality and foundations, what happens if we remove AI from that poll question? What if it's just what worries you about FP&A? Would the answers be the same? Right? Like forget AI for a second. What are our concerns about FP&A reporting or conducting that function? I wager that it might be similar, and that these would be the exact same two that would be leading the response. And what that tells me is there's a common thread here, that if you don't have a solid data foundation and model and trust in the data that's coming from legacy systems, maybe once a day, maybe all seconds of every day, the timing's a big thing. You've got this big apparatus of data behind you. Forget AI for a second. I would guess that the FP&A process itself inherently struggles with accuracy of outputs and data quality foundations sometimes. So how can we expect AI to come in and be a magic elixir to a situation that kind of already exists without AI? So I think that kind of answers a lot of the questions around why it's slow, why people are concerned. Well, because the current state isn't optimized. If you don't have a current optimized state for planning, and now forget the financial part, just planning and analysis. How can you plan and analyze without a solid foundation of information at your disposal and a starting point to base your plan on? That's going to be a problem that AI isn't going to solve.
Yeah. So that starts to get us to the point that says what needs to be in place to use AI at all. Where have you got to be able to start putting AI in place so you can reliably use it?
Boris, I'm not sure if you want to take that one. I'm happy to keep
Yeah,
going.
of course. Yeah, I can just wait. But at the end, I think it's a harmonized single point of truth, or this is the fundament of all reporting, of all planning processes, of all AI processes. But this is just one. It's the technology aspect, or but at the end, I think there also have to be two other very important topics, and this is the organizational foundation, and on the other hand, it's the people who has to be trained to in data governance, in data competences, how to analyze the data, how to interpret the data. And the organizational topic, I think there has to be a clear structure, clear responsibility, a clear way of who should be informed, over which reports and channels do we communicate, or so that it's a fundament, it's a structure where we really can rely on. I think these three topics are very important.
Okay, that you're implementing BI solutions with clients
Yes,
regularly, Boris. So
very.
if those foundations have got to be in place,
Yes.
what are the practical things you do to make sure they're there?
Also, just one topic, if BI as well, not just AI or BI data, they are just a technical project, it will never be a success. Or what we do on our daily base is that we transform our customers to a data-driven company. And
Mm.
that means, of course, the technical setup has to be perfect. It has to be modern. It has to be stable. But this is the easiest part, I would say. I think the most important part is that we really make a change in the company to talk about data in a structured way. That we have the management with the KPIs, with the goal performance indicator, that we enable the department leaders to speak with the management about standardized KPIs, or that we try to make solutions out of the data, that we really control them in loops all the time, or only when we do this, then companies can get better day by day. This is the reality, I would say.
Okay. Now there's an interesting question just popped into the chat from Michael. The AI education space is flooded with options. How would you navigate to ensure training is value for money invested versus scales gained that actually add value? So that kind of extends on what you were saying. How do you get that base team up to speed, educated, and so on? Which might not all be AI. It sounds though a lot of it is the basics of data structure, and things like that. Any thoughts on how to navigate that AI education space?
I mean, from my perspective, really, it depends on the function of the AI. It's hard to say, hey, there's a one-stop shop to just learn AI, right? And a big part of it is every point solution out there that you're leveraging across your business is probably developing some iteration of AI technology for that product. Well, that AI is going to be tuned based on that data structure and the database behind that solution. The front end experience might be presenting the AI information differently. So it's really it is more of a data. It's a data exercise in understanding the structure and the relational components in the database and how AI would leverage them more so than I think it is how do I get general training on a user experience with AI. I think is I mean I could be mistaken there. That's kind of my stab at it in the sense of AI is such a large animal. It'd be hard to say here's the one way to go educate yourself on
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I think that's right. It's down to what are you using it for and what type of application you're using. Certainly, we've got some fairly good AI education within GrowCFO, but it's not necessarily app specific. And that's the question. Do you need basic training, or do you need something in specific tools that you're going to be using every day in FP&A to play with the data? Probably not a good answer there, but um, Eric, that's something else that's sitting under here. Traditional FP&A systems. Why are traditional FP&A systems going to struggle in a modern AI-driven environment?
It's kind of a funny question in the sense that it's contributing to the same challenge that it's trying to solve in the sense of, I think a new phrase that has been common lately has been SaaS sprawl. So when I say that term, it's an organization that has by necessity, and this kind of goes down to a cultural thing I want to talk about a little bit later as well, but business unit has problem. Business unit solves problem by going and buying a software solution. So whether it's a CRM, HR, ERP, planning, you name the different types of applications a business might need to go acquire for their business unit. And that contributes to a massive, wide, disorganized, siloed data environment. Here we are going back to the data. And so you've got 40, 50 different software systems supporting the organization. There's probably a very high chance that a large percentage of them contain data that would be important to a consolidated financial plan. So this is where that data issue. So now you're going to introduce another point solution, a planning platform, a legacy planning platform, just like a CRM, just like an HR system, you name it. Now we have another SaaS product called a planning platform that is contributing to my SaaS sprawl, but is supposed to help fix it because I still got all these other places where the relevant data resides. So I think that's the answer to the question is why the traditional approach to planning kind of fails. The other side is everybody's doing this in Excel or in manual tools anyway. So you're interrupting the end user experience that's doing the planning today by saying, get out of the tools you're currently using. Let's adopt a new front end planning platform that we'll train you on and learn how to use. And oh, by the way, that planning platform has a database behind it where you need to populate the data used for your planning. And that's got to come from all 40 plus SaaS products you have in your organization. So it's highly disruptive. If you're going from a current state of I'm used to the tools I'm using, yes, it might be manual, it might not be joined, integrated in a way that I would ideally like, but I've got my planning working today. And if you're telling me I got to change my front end experience and absorb a massive data problem and project behind the scenes, that's gonna slow you down. I mean, and imagine trying to, we always like to use the analogy of flying the plane, and now we're going to fix the wing while it's in the air. I mean, that's never easy for any business across any project, and it's certainly relevant when it comes to FP&A and tackling the mountain of manual processes and disparate data that's typically going into the process today. And
Yeah.
trying to replace that with another legacy solution is usually not going to lead to quick results.
And I guess it's not just systems. You've got data that's lying around in spreadsheets all over the place. You've got
Mm-hmm.
bits of information that you might need to pick out of emails.
Yep. There might be information that you're not supposed to have from a governance perspective, but you need an aggregate number. I need to know how much payroll expense is going into this project, but I'm not allowed to see individuals' payroll information. So that system needs to give me the allowable data that I can now use in my planning without violating governance protocols within the organization.
Yeah. So, Boris, and you must be coming into this sort of issue quite regularly with clients that you're helping to implement. And is it possible to apply AI realistically to existing upstream systems?
I don't think so, Kevin, because when you what Eric said is, or if you have these 40 systems, or you have different roles and rights, or you have here fragmented data, here fragmented data. So at the end, if you buy or you create AI on top of these solutions, or it's very, very unsolid.
Okay.
And at the end, AI definitely will break because you have no real centralized station about data quality or data governance. So you have to fix so many moving targets, and this is nearly impossible for departments and IT departments. So I think the only way to solve this is definitely to buy this harmonized data layer. And of course, Eric, you mentioned it, or it's always a little bit everybody is afraid that this data platform or data lakehouse project is very, very huge. The only nice thing in the data environment is, apart from as an ERP, or you always have to be end-to-end processes because otherwise it will not work. But in data, you can be very lean or very use case driven. That means it could be if you have a IT strategy or a technology strategy, that it is just 3 or 4 days or 5 days of development, and then you have your first use case in reporting, in planning, in AI, and then it works, and then you can go step by step by step by step. And this is the nice thing in our environment, I would say.
Okay. So, Eric, I'm hearing things about Microsoft Fabric as being something that perhaps should be there. We briefly just mentioned data lakes there. And organizations, should they be investing heavily in that sort of stuff? And flip side of that, the ones that have invested heavily, is it making the difference? Is it actually solving this problem?
So I'll take heavily out first. The answer is, should you invest? Yes. Heavily, to Boris's point, the luxury of this is you can take a very small use case subset of data. You can organize that information and you can build a very first use case in a short period of time. So it doesn't take a heavy investment to necessarily get started in terms of here's the first set of data and the first use case we'd like to apply AI. There's not a massive barrier to entry there. Culturally, there might be, right? It really comes down in our experience to the working relationship between IT and finance as to how quickly that will materialize. But you don't have to take a one-shot blast approach and like AI is everywhere in the organization now. That will fail. So you want to invest, yes. And the organizations that have started and invested correctly with one use case and then built upon the success of that use case throughout the organization typically see the best results. A small team brought together, IT, finance, specific use case. Let's use it as kind of a small pilot project to see if we can get that data organized and governed, and then AI can be applied against it, and we can measure the results very concretely on a very small use case. And then you've got it down. And now it's a matter of, okay, we understand how we built this for one use case. It's not going to be identical for every use case in the business, but you know the building blocks and you know the processes to get you there. You mentioned Fabric. Fabric's the data piece, right? It's the unified layer of all the data across the organization, not dissimilar from a data warehouse where data lakes and reporting environments can be carved out from. And that's incredibly important to have that layer across any organization because you do need to have that single source of truth with the information from my HR system, from my production system, from wherever system. It's coming into one place. It's relational. And that's where I want to report from in the first place. So it's also going to be where I'd like to leverage scenario modeling and AI and building, because I can't report with dirty data. So if you've gotten to clean data for reporting, that's going to be where you're going to want to start, maybe leveraging AI, because at least you've got to a clean data state.
Okay, so I'm getting a clear message coming from this. It's start small. Start with a process that you understand. You can define quite clearly the data that you need. You can work out where it's coming from. You can gather it in. You can put the right governance around it. And you should, by taking that approach, you should be able to test the outputs and gain confidence that the outputs from this process you've taken are the right outputs. You're getting the right answer.
What I just can add, Kevin, is that it's always good if you have a clear goal what you want to achieve, and this could also be smart. It could just be reduce manual work with AI, or be more precise, be faster. It's not always the holy cow, the big thing you want to create. I think it's always important here as well. Set yourself small goals and go step by step as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Boris, then, what sort of use cases are you seeing being implemented?
What in my eyes, what is very important, especially for financial planning, to be more accurate, to be better, is that we optimize the part plans up front. Or that means when we are talking about, for example, sales planning, it gives us the revenue for our P&L. Or when we go to the procurement department, gives us the cost of goods sold. So if we make that part processes or the pre-processes better, like forecasting, prediction, automation, then I think as well in our financial department, plan data will get better. This is one of our most important use cases, that we really speed up and that we make planning quality better in the departments up front. One of the most important use cases. And then at the end, where I see in the financial department, a very important topic is scenario planning. Or when I use, for example, Monte Carlo simulation, do we have risk in special markets? Do we have risk in goods we have to buy? And if we do like this, then we have parameters we can set. We can make scenarios. We go to the CEOs. We can make or start discussions about this. I think then we have a very good result out of our projects, so that there is a transparency. If this will happen, what does this occur in our profit and loss, in our balance, or in our cash flow? And if we combine all these together in an integrated planning, then we have a very strong solution.
Manuel, do you have a take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to say one thing, because probably going back to Eric's answer, I mean, I think that is, regarding the investment in Fabric and probably in Power BI as well, I think there is a massive difference between analytics and execution, right? Because a lot of people, Power BI, for example, is fantastic at telling you what happened yesterday. Okay, it shows you the trends, it shows you the variances, it gives you essentially the what, right? But probably FP&A execution, I think Boris mentioned about that as well, is probably about what we do next. Okay, it's about planning, it's about forecasting, it's about basically taking action. Okay, and the problem is, in most of the companies that I met, these two worlds remain completely locked apart. Okay, you see the insight in a modern dashboard, for example, but to actually adjust the forecast or change the budget, you have to leave that dashboard and open a legacy system, or worse, open a disconnected Excel file. I think Eric mentioned about that as well. Okay, it is just one-way street. Okay, data flows into the dashboard, but decisions don't flow back into the plan. So why hasn't it solved the problem? because probably without governed bi-directional integration, okay, insights just stay trapped in the screen. They are just, pretty pictures. They don't drive action, okay? And until we close, that gap between modern analytics and operational execution, we are just watching the business, okay? Not really driving it.
Yeah, I get that. Power BI is slicing and dicing the historic data. Now,
Correct.
one piece that I worry about in terms of AI being able to then move that data and take it into the forecast space, okay, is now I was taught as a business partner when I see data and I see variance to start asking the question why. And that asking the question why involves talking to people, oh, revenue was down 20% this month. Why was that? Oh, that's because product A didn't do as well. We had to reduce price because of a competitor. Oh, right. So, well, why has that competitor suddenly become a problem? Well, because of whatever. And then you ask another why question until you get down to the point that, hang on a minute, I've gone from the data looks a bit odd, right down now, I understand the reasons, but it's only because I've asked maybe several people and I've asked the why question several times. Okay, I've now got down to something that I understand and is an actionable way forward to put something then into the forecast. Okay, now my problem right now is how do you put AI onto the data and get to the forecast without all of that process going on?
Oh, I mean, you kind of just you tacked on a little bit of a agentic AI there, Kevin, in the sense of AI would hopefully, in an optimal state with clean data structures behind it, you don't need to ask your people, you ask AI. Where is the specific anomaly that makes this number 20% less on my report?
Mm.
And if your data is organized correctly and it's coming from the systems and it's governed, it would quickly be able to tell you product A
Yeah.
had a big drop, and that was the anomaly detection in terms of creating this variance in your report. And that's the agentic side. That's what we're all using today with Chat GPT and Grok, right? You just type in a question and have it give you the answer.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of front end finance professionals are looking towards. But they have to realize that AI is not just at the front end agentically answering questions, it's also running scenario analysis nonstop and coming up with its own variances based on different parameters. It's cleansing the data as it comes in and detecting that somebody fat fingered their figure. And no, that number isn't right. So before it even gets to the plan, it helps identify the data anomalies behind the agentic piece. So and it kind of goes back to the training question you asked earlier, or one of the users here asked or was asking earlier, which part of AI are you looking to get trained on, right? The data cleansing back end anomaly detection? Is it the AI engine running its own forecasts and predictive analyses? Or is it the end user being able to ask AI a question like, why is this number 20% less? Help me identify the specific anomaly. I mean, the answer is all of these.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I see that you trained to be a finance person. What were all those different disciplines that you trained for over a long period of time? AI is almost becoming the same. You've got loads of different facets, different disciplines in it. There's a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to the fabric comment, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, everybody already today has some level of analytic reporting, right? Whether it's an Excel spreadsheet, whether it's maybe a sophisticated database and model, but everybody today, they have to be able to report on their business. Forget planning. So what have you done to build that reporting mechanism? You have to have a model. You have to have data that you trust. The calculations have to be there that make the data relational. So you've already done that work. Everybody has. It might not be ideal, might be in Excel, it might be in something more sophisticated, but there's no business today that doesn't at least report on their business. And they've had to create some sort of semantic model. This data makes sense, therefore I can report on my business. What most businesses, I think, fail to recognize is you've actually done the foundational work that if you can add the ability to write back to that report and say, well, what if this number changed to this on my analytics? What would it look like? What would change? And that's the missing ingredient that needs to be added, and only added, not recreated, if you've already gotten to a state where you can see your data. You can report on it, see analytics, see trends, slice and dice. All you're really missing, and what AI is missing, is the ability to say, what if that changed? How would all this look differently? And
Okay.
that's kind of that technological write back piece that we talk about.
Okay, yeah, because I hear you and Manuel talk a lot about Writeback when we have conversations. So it is literally as simple as that. It's the what if that piece of data changed? What do we
Yeah.
get? Yeah.
And letting the model then recalculate based on that one change of input to what's already established, that this one little piece changed. How does my EBITDA change based on that 20% product having less sales?
Yeah.
Right? Like that's what you're looking to, that's what you want it to tell you if it has the capability of receiving that input from you.
Okay. Okay. So we're talking therefore about a small section of planning solutions that have that write-back capability, or is that something I'd see across the board?
Well, I think planning solutions inherently need to have write back. The thing is where if you're getting a legacy brand new point solution that has a write back capability in it, you're still completely redoing everything that you're doing today. But
Correct.
if you're in an analytic environment already, like in our case, you're already in a Power BI report or an Excel spreadsheet, and it happens to be leveraging a unified set of data behind it, Acterys just adds the ability for those same tools, Power BI, Excel, for the user to do what we just talked about. I want to change this piece of data and watch the model recalculate. And that's a human doing it. Now imagine AI comes in and says, I want to do it a million times with a million different iterations, and we'll show you the best results instead of a human doing the write back. So, I mean, the write back has to be there even for the human.
Hmm.
Right. But now, I mean, AI especially needs to be able to say, well, I want to start changing things and seeing how it recalculates and then present those results to the end user. It still needs to be able to write back. So the more you can leverage the database and the front end tools that you're already using, the better and the faster you'll get to that point.
Okay. So I'm picking up from this conversation, if I can summarize for a second, that you are going to have issues with data sitting in all sorts of legacy systems. You've got a sprawl of the SaaS stack. Some of it might not even be in the cloud, it might be on premise. Somehow you've got to bring all of that data together, and therefore you've got issues of, is the data compatible? Is it complete? Is it governed properly so that the timing of data in one system matches the timing in another? So we've got a big problem there. I'm working into that Boris is saying, well, hang on a minute, you've got to take a small place to start.
Hmm.
Solve this use case by use case. Okay. There's no way you're ever going to make a big bang work here. Yeah. No. I can see some huge dangers. So you start off small, you get something that works, you expand and you expand. Yeah. In the examples, and you've mentioned a few examples you've seen already, Boris,
Yes.
the sort of companies that you're talking about, how far have they progressed from that initial use case?
Can you repeat the question, Kevin? Sorry.
We're saying that the best way to start with this, Boris, is to start small.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Start small and always make some thoughts about how can the system by itself or the data or the AI give me recommendations. Or I think that's also a very important part that we not just say we want to do analytics and we always have to interpret the data. I think the real big win is when the let me say, the machine give us recommendations how to react. I think that is a very important topic.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I've got a question coming that kind of extends what we're saying here. Ashish is saying, how fast, he actually says Acterys, set up no-code supply chain planning for finance teams, doing e-invoicing, order to cash, plus typical ROI time, and examples of breaking planning silos at mid-size Oracle Apex used tool by other companies. So really saying, how fast can we move with this? We're saying start small, but how fast can we move? I don't know. Boris, Eric,
I think Eric,
what's your view on
for
how
you
fast?
or
Well, I mean, I kind of want Manuel to chime in on this too, because you're always the bridge between the IT and the finance department, which is pretty much the answer to the question is another question. It's like every environment that we go into, none of them are starting from the same point. So, I mean, if the organization is already on Fabric, and let's say they already have pipes of data coming into a data warehouse, they're going to be much faster in getting turned around on in terms of getting some meaningful, not only analytic reports, but the ability to write back and do all the FP&A and planning and applying AI to that information. If an organization is, hey, we've got all of our source systems not in a data warehouse, but we're pumping data individually from each of those systems into a financial environment or Excel spreadsheet or report, you're starting way behind the curve, and it's going to take quite a bit of time to get you established from just the data architecture perspective to then do any of the things that were just listed there that need to be accomplished. Now, I mean, to be generally speaking, if we're going in, like we've been saying here, an individual use case, trying to start small, from our perspective, at least, it's, 3 months, 3 to 4 months is what we're looking at to have something set up that's delivering value to the customer. But I don't even like using that range because, again, if you don't have a data warehouse or Fabric or anything like that, you're going to spend 3 to 4 months just getting the data staged. So you're not even close to getting value yet. So it's a bit of a loaded question. I love the question because everybody wants to know speed to value, but every single situation, as far as our technology is concerned, is an initially diagnostic as to what's been done on the back end first that we can leverage, or do we need to recreate?
Yeah, yeah. Manuel, do you have a view on that?
I mean, I completely agree with Eric because I mean it's depending on each situation and depending customer by customer. I mean, I found most of the times that there are a lot of customers that they already have in place their analytics platform. This is one step, but obviously, the value depends on what is the maturity of these customers regarding this type of applications.
Leads quite nicely into a question David has put into the Q&A. David's saying, I've attended a software provider evening and a panel expert that suggested that disaggregated data is not a hurdle for AI. What are the panel's thoughts? Disaggregated data, not a problem for AI. Manuel, do you have a view on that?
I don't understand really the question because at the end of the day, it's clear that we need to have clean data. Doesn't matter if it's segregated or disaggregated. Okay, for me, that's the key point. I mean, if we have dirty data, doesn't matter. I mean, we will obtain dirty results at the speed light. That's the point with AI. So. I don't know. Probably the answer would be more on trying to have clean data more than if it's segregated or disaggregated. That's my view.
Clean data. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Eric.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of an interesting question. I mean, you can use AI to attack and help you make sense of desegregated data, but at the end of the day, whether it's a human or AI, like it needs to know that my cost of goods sold needs to be subtracted from my revenue to get profit. And AI doesn't just know that that number over here needs to be subtracted from that number over there. It needs some level of organization and direction to understand what the relation is across desegregated data. So I mean, unless we're using desegregated in a different way,
Mm. So a
to me,
term that I've heard
yeah,
there is grounding the AI. Um,
yeah.
so that the AI knows what's in data set A and data set B, and it knows all the rules around this, which is what you're alluding to there.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it goes back to if AI does get to the point where it's making a meaningful recommendation that we're now going to act on, AI has crunched the numbers and said, here's the suggestion. We need to know what it did. Like what conclusion, where did those conclusions come from? Hopefully the same relationships that we had set up as humans, where cost gets subtracted from revenue. But you do need to be able to at least map what the AI did when it gives you a recommendation that you're going to take to your CFO, and he's going to say, well, why is this the recommendation? I mean, with
Mm.
desegregated data, I think you have a hard time answering that question.
Yeah. Mhm. Okay. A question that came in very, very early in the session. I think we were only about 8 minutes in when Michael asked, with vast data in the retail FMCG space, how capable is AI currently? How much data structuring manipulation is required before using AI becomes useful?
I think we always have to take care of what data do we need, what are the key drivers of the result we want to get, and then we definitely have to take care of these data. We do not have to cleanse all of them. Yeah, we just have to figure out what are the relevant data, I would say.
Yeah. And no, I'm reflecting on some of my own experience, and I
Yeah,
spent a good while with PwC, specializing in performance management and planning and budgeting.
yeah.
Certainly, I think about performance management projects. We were putting dashboards together and coming up with KPIs. We're very much those days balanced scorecard driven.
Mhm.
Typically, you would do a project and say, what do you want to measure? Okay, great. We've got the great list of performance metrics. Then we'd say, where's the data coming from for those? And you then start IT projects going to get the data. Now, we've now got the situation that we have actually the opposite. We've got so much data that we don't know which bits of it to measure. And I'd still argue that your starting point in that sort of project is what information do you need? What KPIs do you want? Let's now work that out. And instead of what data do we now need to go and find to populate those KPIs, it's what subset of data that we've already got is the important bit.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that question, Kevin, kind of comes from someone that probably has legacy planning experience, because a lot of these planning platforms were always developed for FP&A specifically. And when you're developing a software product, you definitely want it to perform quickly. You want to make sure it's lean, that the end user experience, they're not sitting there waiting for it to grind away. And so they design the FP&A legacy platforms for FP&A data. And so in most cases, that means I don't need transactional data. I need my high level financial information across the organization coming into my planning solution. Now, suddenly, you want to bring in every sales transaction that occurred, and you want to start doing trending on every single sales transaction that made up your revenue line. Now we're talking about something that these legacy FP&A platforms were not designed for.
Yeah.
And they're going to bog down, they're going to break, they're going to sometimes just time out, because it was not a transactional data solution in the first place. And so that's what kind of brings us again back to Fabric and data warehouses. And now you can actually control the performance of a solution that you have based on the database structure, the relationships that you've built in there. Maybe some of the calculations are being done at that level versus the front end user level. We all know Excel breaks down with too much data. We even know Power BI can do that in some cases if you're over leveraging the front end of it. So that's where now the new wave of being able to do this kind of takes us away from that data limitation of the legacy systems, because they just weren't designed for transactional analysis. Whereas Fabric, Microsoft tools, they are, and they can be balanced when you have an open solution that has the write back capability. So that's, I mean, that's kind of, I kind of feel like that question was coming from somebody that knows the limitation of legacy planning solutions today.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
let me say something here, because Eric, it's like I always use a metaphor here, because it's like trying to put a Formula One engine inside a vintage tractor, right? I mean, the engine is powerful, yes, but the chassis simply cannot handle the speed. That's the situation. So what happens when the foundation isn't ready? AI initiatives stall, right? Or even worse, you end up with a black box that nobody trusts. And that introduces risk rather than insight, correct? So, to answer a question, probably, progress feels slow, probably not because the AI isn't smart enough, but because the infrastructure is often just not ready for it. That's the case.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant. Please, folks, and we've got 5 minutes left. Please, any other questions you've got, please drop them into the chat or into the Q&A as we're going along. But now, a term that I'm hearing a lot, and actually it's our tech theme in GrowCFO this quarter, AI native. Now, we've been talking about a lot of data being stuck in, traditional systems and so on. Is AI native going to be the holy grail to getting all the good data that we want? I've got silence on the panel.
I guess
Boris, any
AI,
thoughts?
yeah, go ahead.
That's a hard question. I don't think so, or because it's always a topic of interpreting data. It's always, I think we definitely have to take care of them. At the end, nothing could be completely automated in my eyes.
Okay.
I kind of think, kind of going back to SaaS sprawl point earlier, Kevin, that's kind of we kind of see that as a wave that's already kind of in its infancy, but starting is, do I need 50 SaaS products if I have all my data in one place, in one warehouse, and I have a front end experience that I can do Writeback from?
Yeah.
I might not need 50 different SaaS products that actually exacerbate my issue.
Mhm.
I'm able to get leaner.
Yeah.
But where does this come from, Eric? It's that at the end, the functional departments like finance, sales, and so on, they always trust prefixed solution or prepared solution. That means it in the first step, it always looks easier to use one of these. But at the end, I'm always stuck into my personal processes, or so they are not really flexible. And with the technology at the moment, it's very easy to bring my individual needs in a platform what is definitely built for it. And that's why it's very easy to put Fabric, Acterys, Power BI on all of my data sources and make the best out of it. And this is, I think, a very important topic. What is a great benefit with the new technology and the cloud infrastructure?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Getting a very specific question here. I'm going to direct this to you, Eric, from Ashish. How does Acterys detect and fix bad data during predictions to ensure accurate forecast for finance teams?
Not going to do it while you're doing the predictive analysis. It's supposed to be doing it as the data is coming into the environment. So anomaly detection on data is occurring prior to letting your AI engine run any predictions or analysis on it. And this kind of goes back to, again, forget AI for a second. How is the human that's doing this today know that the data is correct? Well, they're not. They have to trust the data first. So that's the foundational piece on the back end is you already have anomaly detection. You have the tools in place that can find duplicative entries and errors and entries that might look erroneous, and they've been addressed and flagged by this point before you're ever clicking a button saying, AI, go make some sense of this data and give me some predictions. So unless I'm missing something there, it's definitely, you need the data clear, but the AI, when it's about to go and do its predictive analysis work, is it also going to be doing the data anomaly detection at the same time? Those are typically two different functions that are occurring.
Yeah.
Okay. Final question in the last minute. Michael is asking, if we have a scenario where the data lake is well structured and complete, how much of a competitive action advantage can AI be? Do we have examples where organizations have had success in this space? Boris, have you seen organizations in that position that you've worked with?
Where the data lake is already well structured and what
Complete.
advantages they took out of it?
Yes.
Absolutely. We have customers where we, for example, take the structured data from sales, or they have, let me guess, they have 800 point of sale, for example. And what they want to achieve is that we do the complete replenishment driven by AI, nearly half automated or fully automated. And what we did is that in the first place, or in the first step, we created this harmonized data lakehouse. And on these data, we made it really happen that we get a revenue increase of 18% out of AI. Just that we took care of which product, in which size, in which column, at the right time, on which place. I think there is definitely as a really, really good examples where we can much benefit with AI in the actual processes.
Okay, that's one very good answer. So the answer very definitely is AI can be a lot of a competitive advantage. You're quoting 18% there.
100%. Yeah, you just have to have the right use cases.
Yes.
And what is perhaps some of the companies are always a little bit afraid of the costs, or we can run AI bots or AI logic with 300 euros a month because it's so easy to implement, so easy to set it up, or so easy to use it. If we have not the right use case, we can shut it down. So it's very easy as well to get it and to close it.
Okay.
And this makes it so interesting, or because you don't have this big border to jump in, these high costs, or
Yeah. Okay. Boris, thank you.
cost.
Boris, Manuel, Eric, thank you very much for this afternoon. I've thoroughly enjoyed the last hour. It's been really, really interesting, and I hope that the audience has found exactly the same. Thank you again for taking the time and coming along and giving us the heads up on the latest thing. I was going to ask one more question that says, if FP&A is behind the curve now at the beginning of 2026, where are we going to be at the beginning of 2027? But hey, haven't got time to ask that one. We can all wonder.
Hey, part two.
Part two.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank
Okay.
you so much, Kevin, for the invitation. Have a good afternoon.
Okay, take care. Thank you, everybody, for attending.
Thanks very much. Have a great day.